Hey everybody, John Edible Portland. We're here on a Tuesday. We're breaking that Friday cycle, which is kind of cool and kind of different. It is a sunny day here in Portland in February. I can't believe it's February.
I just got used to writing January on everything.
Yeah, I'm just like, man, what is going on? We've got a really cool one today. Here talking to Dillon at Little T Bakery. And I have a personal history that I didn't even tell you yet. That when I was running the wine bar over on the coast and I was having a bread problem, I had an email written and sitting in my draft, waiting to send, I don't know how many times, like, how can we work out you getting your bread over to me? If I promise to take care of it throughout the week. I'm like, I'm up on Mondays and Tuesdays getting wine from here and stuff and this and that, picking up produce and wine throughout the valley, and on my way back, I'm like, if I promise to care for it as best I can, because I don't have the bandwidth to have a bakery and do the things, and there wasn't a good bakery over there. I'm like, no, this is a superior product that I would not want to mess up. And you can't, and having a wine bar, especially back in the day, you kind of have to have that bread factor.
Yeah, I think you still ought to.
Yeah,
honestly.
So this is really cool to be here and talk with you because you do have you've got some history and some ties into this crazy little food town of ours.
I do, yeah. I've been here. I moved out here originally in 2003. I was like 18. I came out here to go to school to be a cook. Originally, I went to Western Culinary back a long time ago, and I was living in Northwest at the time. And originally, I'd been a cook. I'd worked in restaurants growing up in a small town in Wisconsin, and had actually apprenticed with an old German chef at one point. And he was impossible to work with. But he, part of my responsibilities in that apprenticeship were like making bread for the restaurant and like doing cinnamon rolls and things. And that really got me excited. And so when I got out here, I was living in Northwest and I would go to Food Front grocery store. And I was doing that as the St. Honoré up on Thurman was getting built out. And so I'd like walk past, a couple times a week, and they were building out this really cool oven, just watching this cylindrical oven go up. And finally one day they were getting closer, and I like knocked on the door and I was like, hey, I've got some barista experience. Like, are you guys hiring? And so I was a barista there for like, I don't know, 2 months, month and a half, before Dominique was like, why don't you do all of this other stuff? I was like, yeah, great. And so that's how I got started making bread professionally, which was great. It was a really great environment. He was a really incredible baker, wonderful to learn from. And then, I kind of bounced around. I went to France for just over a year, 14 months or something, go to school in Paris and work, and came back and got a job at Tea about 3 months after it opened in 2009, 2008, I can't remember, somewhere in there. And then and the original owner, Tim Healy, is a wonderful man, incredibly sweet, and just a really, really good baker and a really good teacher.
Okay,
and
that's awesome.
Yeah, so he kind of just like, here are things I'm interested in, like work on stuff. And I'd be like, hey, I'm curious about that. And he's like, go for it.
That's cool.
And so he kind of gave me sort of complete freedom just to like, as long as production was done, like the stuff we needed for wholesale, I just work on whatever else. And so I got to really go deep onto like fermentation. And then later I really got into different grains and started doing that more. And kind of around that time, I got introduced to a woman named Lane Selman, who runs the Culinary Breeding Network. And that really kind of, Lane Selman is sort of like the nexus of the Portland
I was
food
just
scene.
getting ready to say all the roads come and go
Yeah.
and through.
And
like,
so
yeah.
I like half the people I know in the city are because of her. And so much of what I've gotten to learn and play with, like I've worked with breeders at OSU, WSU, UC Davis. I've gotten to play with cool stuff from the University of Wisconsin, like all sorts of different, like not just like wheat or even like spring wheat or summer wheat or spring wheat or winter wheats, but like I spent a lot of time working on barley
That's cool.
and then millet, oats, just, corn, just like really, really fascinating stuff. And then kind of through doing that, eventually I met Tom Hunton, the owner of Camas Country Mill.
Yeah.
And the Hunton farm. And then they have a seed cleaning warehouse. They had a ag services company, like, a bunch of different things. And so 2019, I started working for them as their head baker at they've got a little bakery on the farm, just in between Eugene and Junction City.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot of fun because it was sort of just like, do whatever you want. Here are all these grains. Just make sure you can talk about all of them. And like, so I just spent a bunch of time just kind of making stuff with things and trying to figure out, how things worked or like what I didn't know a lot. And, just buying and reading a lot of books.
Sure.
And then,
Yeah.
so I was there for about 3 years, and then the pandemic kind of like, I was sort of burned out. I was still living in Portland and traveling back and forth, staying in a camper on the farm like a couple nights a week.
Okay. Van life.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. It was like a very 90s camper too. It really had that smell. But yeah, I kind of I got burned out, and like I missed, being home with my wife and my dog. And so I came back to Portland. I worked at Frezen Artisan Bakery up on Gleason and like 72nd.
Okay.
Just doing a lot of German stuff. And he kind of was like, here's all these things that I haven't gotten to play with in a long time because I've been so focused on like just running this bakery. So he just gave me a bunch of really weird like German, Austrian recipes. And so that was a lot of fun.
That's
Getting into like really deep into like weird rye formulas is just really neat. But Tim, I'd been trying to open a bakery for 10 years at that point. Had almost opened one with Stacy Givens from Side Yard Farms.
Okay.
And I'd been trying to do it for a long time. I had like multiple business plans, and kept banging my head against the wall. And finally, I was talking to Tim about something else. Like he needed a head baker, and it's like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do that. I'm still like trying to focus on opening a bakery. He's like, well, do you want to buy one? And I was like, I mean, yeah. So yeah, so I bought this place and took it over April 1st, 2023.
Okay.
So coming up on 2 years, and it's been a lot of fun in a lot of ways that I kind of didn't expect.
That's cool.
And like,
Rewarding.
it's incredibly frustrating in many ways, but like
sure.
also, I've changed all of our flour over to Oregon and Washington mills with a focus on organic when I can. And, there's just some stuff you can't grow organically here. But and so like I've changed all the flours and all the doughs. I've adjusted formulas to kind of like fit how I want to bake, like to add, like I've added starter to a lot of things as like part of a hybrid starter yeast, like the baguettes and some other stuff, just to sort of add, try to add like some shelf stability and like a depth of flavor.
Right.
And then, just working with, the people from Providor, where
Sure.
we have a counter, essentially another retail location for us. And so from there, you know, I get a large amount of produce from Rubinette. And Josh has, I mean, just really, really good connections and a really good eye. And then Revel Meats.
Sure.
Everything we've gotten from them has been great.
Yeah.
We kind of ricochet from, you know, one thing to another because like we get excited about stuff and
it's fun.
Yeah, and we've just started getting some smoked trout from 2x just because we kind of wanted it, and so we're like, well, we'll figure out something to do with it.
Sure.
But yeah, it was mostly just because we wanted to eat it.
Best reason of all, mate.
Yeah, yeah. And then, you know, stuff like, I mean, Portland has a wild chocolate scene too. I don't know how deep people get into it, but like, we're using woodblock for some specific things. We're using Ranger for like more general stuff. And we're using Cloud Forest, not for chocolate, but for vanilla products, because they work with a farmer and import all that stuff themselves too. And like, I don't know, that to me was kind of the neatest revelation to find out like, oh man, I have all of these options.
Right.
That, you know, we didn't, you know, 20 years ago, everything that was like high quality that you could get for a bakery was European. And so to be able to have, you know, obviously like chocolate's never going to be a local thing, but like, you know, bought by small companies, processed locally.
Sure.
Like that's great. I was happy to spend my money that way too.
We don't grow coffee in America. So,
no,
you know,
no,
so
and
it's like some things are just going to have to come from the source.
Yeah. Well, and you know, just getting to work with, you know, we get so many more deliveries at random times now, just because we've switched from having like all of our stuff come from Provista or Glory Be Wholesale out of Eugene to just picking up random stuff here and there from different people. And it's a little, you know, it's a little more complex for us, but like
scheduling or the calendar or
the
movements of it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we get, for example, we get flour from a place in Myrtle Creek, Oregon called Myrtle Creek Farms. And we just get like 3 things from them. Or we get 2 things wholesale, or 2 things that we use. And yeah, just trying to remember to like email that guy for like the 200 pounds of flour I need from him every month. But like, I can't, you know, it is the best of what it is and I can't find it anywhere else. So it's, you know, keep track of it. So no big deal.
That's awesome. I mean, and I think you've said it in laying out that storyline is through your time, being able to experiment, taste, and work with these things, you've honed that knowledge and that experience to like, okay, this is where I want to go with this, or this is what I want to play with to get to this spot.
Mm-hmm.
And then being able to try all the different things, you get to hone down to this is the best of this from these people, and this is from this, you know, and all those different pieces come together to make it all happen, which is no easy feat. It can come with, it has its challenges, but can only come about because of knowledge and experience, truly.
Well, and I think one of the, I've talked about this a lot with other people too, specifically in bakeries in Portland, but like, I think kind of in general, you know, bakeries in Portland aren't competitive in a way that, I'm sure restaurants aren't terribly competitive, but it feels slightly more so. But I don't know, I'm an outside observer. But like, you know, I know, you know, there's like 100 bakers in Portland, 100 bread bakers who are super into it, maybe more. But like, you know, so you kind of know of everybody and you know people through people. And I think everybody's just excited to talk about it.
Sure.
And so you just learn stuff from folks. I mean, a friend of mine is Matt Kenzie from Starter Bread, and we do very different things. We have very different interests, like stylistically, but like we come from the same place with ingredients. And I think, you know, every time I get to talk to him, we just like go down a rabbit hole, and like I think we both walk away with like a piece of information we didn't have about something. And I find that's really, I find it's a lot more like there is a community, and like with talking to all of these different chocolate people, I don't feel a huge amount of competition between them. I know all these different small farms help each other out, and farm people go from, one to another depending on the season.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of community is what's always kind of made Portland food really, really regional and interesting, but also like, a nice thing to be a part of.
It sets a nice tone for it. And we were talking about that a little bit earlier. And a few weeks back, maybe a couple months back now, we were talking to Chef Joel Stocks at L'Orange. And he was talking about, they were getting that together and different things going on. And throughout his career in Portland, a couple of different, some of the namesake places, that he, everyone willing to chip in and chip in, work together, all that. The conversation's always open.
Yeah.
And, you're always just kind of taking something away because people are going to such different directions that it's a wonderful thing. But if you need somebody to hop in to do this, to help out or whatever, it's there. I see all the time with like the PR marketing, groups that we work with, and that we found out last year that they all talk to each other all day long, and it's like, hey, if you guys are on the line, I got a question, just because if I'm talking to one of them, and I cannot think of another city that, all the way down the board, everyone's just what you said. It's just like, it's just a community. We're just, hanging out, and the whatever the circle, the group we're in, it's like just sharing stuff, hanging out.
Yeah.
The respect is there, the this and that. And it's so awesome to hear you say that too, because I'm like, it is what makes this town special in so many ways.
Yeah. I mean, I've left a couple times, and I come back. I think what's sort of beautiful about it is there's just sort of, it is that sort of community. And I think in terms of like ingredients, I don't know that you find a much better center point for things. At least I haven't. I'm sure there's other great places, but I think for me, what's so exciting is like we've got the Valley, we've got all of Eastern Oregon, which is really diverse.
Yeah.
Even Eastern Washington, and then up into the Skagit Valley. There's some people growing really good grain on the Olympic Peninsula.
Oh wow. Okay.
I can never remember the name of it, but yeah, there's really cool stuff outside of Port Townsend. But then, we also have just really incredible fruit. Yeah. We've got access to really great protein, really people who really care about their livestock, and people who care, like small slaughterhouses, which are really rare.
Sure.
And then, just incredible, the amount of like really interesting produce that comes out of small farms in and around Portland. And then, gathering together is phenomenal. Groundworks is, these are exceptional farms. Like we're really lucky, lucky to have access to. And just sort of the interplay of all of those people, I think that's what has really kind of given us a regional cuisine in a way that I think you find, because the West Coast isn't terribly old. So like to have a regional cuisine and culture around it is kind of surprising to me. Especially since we spent so much time as like white European settlers, like destroying what was here first.
Sure. That's a great way to put it.
We could have learned a lot of really interesting things a long time ago if we'd not been awful. But,
apparently it's our default move.
It is. It does seem that way. But, and like getting some of that back now, like Javelina just opening, like that's, they're just bringing all of these different approaches to the things that we have in all of these different styles of restaurants and all of these different like kind of idioms is really, it's kind of inspiring to me.
It's pretty rad, and I'm so glad to be back in Portland. And as we were talking before the camera clicked on, and just the energy here, the communication, the community, the culture, just like you said, it's having its own, I'm going to say ness, like its own character, and a hand and some feet, in the past, and respect of that, and then moving forward, or how can we do that? Yeah. And it's not just, you know, the vegan stuff, the gluten-free,
Yeah.
the dairy, the this, the that. It's like, it's all aspects of all of this.
Yeah.
And bringing in things and actually listening and not just trying to put something forward because, you know, we got to do this now. Proteins, veg, seed, coming out of the ground.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know. It's very cool. So you've been at the helm here almost 2 years?
Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years. Yeah, that's pretty rad. And we're on the corner of 26th and Division, Southeast, which is a great neighborhood. And I like what you said earlier about a walking neighborhood. That makes a lot of sense. You know, it's like you can get you see the bread, you know, on menus, obviously up at Providor. But there's nothing like just going to your local and, you know, that thing. And it's the jam, you know, it's how to be. What have been some of your favorite, what have been some of the favorite, you know, grains and things you've worked with? You know, you were talking about some barley or, you know, flax or getting into ancient grain. You know what I mean?
I mean,
Barley.
I love spelt.
Spelt.
They would tease me when I was working at Camus because I would go through as much spelt as I did like their sifted white flour.
Sure.
Because it's delicious, you know, and it's like anything else. It takes learning how to use, but like it's not terribly complex.
Yeah.
But the flavor is amazing. And so we make a spelt bread with quinoa and flax that came down from Little T a long time ago, and then has just kind of like gotten, you know, more and more refined as we go.
Sure.
That's Tim Westonall from the winery out in the gorge. Not the gorge, the valley.
Okay.
No, but spelt. I use a lot of spelt. You know, like I love, there's so many different wheat varieties now, some of which are like heirloom grains. You know, Red Fife is the big one, Rouge de Bordeaux. There's something called Edison, which is a white wheat. And those are cool, but also like UC Davis especially is developing some really interesting, just like bread flours, bread grains for organic systems that really take into account like the grower and the miller and everybody. And I think that's really, really interesting. I absolutely love buckwheat, and I don't have enough stuff with it on the menu right now. It's kind of a hard sell, I feel like, sometimes.
Sure. It's distinct.
It is distinct.
It's a distinct profile.
Yeah. I think once you kind of ferment it and learn to ferment it properly, or like get the right fermentation on it, you really develop some beautiful like floral, tart pear kind of notes to it. And it's just, some of my favorite breads are barley or buckwheat. And then rye. I mean, I just absolutely love rye. And then, you know, things like barley is super versatile in a way that I never would have expected.
Sure.
There's some people really working hard on triticale, which is field. Originally, it was a field blend, field hybrid of rye and wheat, and now they're like developing it, and it's been used. It exists. It's existed for hundreds of years, but mostly as animal feed.
Okay.
But it's a really resilient crop. It doesn't take a lot of water, like it takes a lot of abuse. And so OSU has been doing a lot of work to develop and kind of push it. And then there's a group out of California that has also been doing that. And, you know, it's delicious. Yeah. Wow. And it's kind of a weird thing to get your head around as a baker. But once you kind of get over the hump of like not really knowing what it is, it's really, really nice.
Getting your head around it, I mean, when I think about, you know, my decades as far as culinary world goes, and it's just, baking terrifies me. It's just, I didn't get that part in my brain, in my download. It just,
you know,
I mean, it's beautiful to me. It is truly one of those artworks. And I mean, there's science, obviously, but where that comes together and just that intuition and that feel, you know, and of course, the right equipment, or
the right equipment really makes a difference. It really does.
To get the idea of the wood-fired oven and all that stuff is great, but I'm like, well,
yeah. I don't think you'll ever meet a long-term bread baker who doesn't have a dream about like moving out into the country and like baking bread in their barn with a wood-fired oven. Like, Lord knows, that's the goal. But as a production baker, I think I've done it and I don't want to do it again.
Right. It's a whole nother beast.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of a fun thing for us as a bakery to do, right? Like, because I think is to teach people about baking in a way that isn't like, hitting them on the head with stuff.
Yeah.
I'm always, we'll put grains like on tags, and like we let people know what's going on, but I also don't want to beat people over the head with like, you should only eat whole grain, because a nice baguette's a nice baguette,
Right.
But I want people to like come along with me and like try these things that I think are really good, and then folks are going to have questions, and I'm going to be able to answer those questions hopefully, and then I can get into all the stuff with this is how this whole system works. You have university breeders and some private breeders. You have growers all over the place. You have milling is a specific science with a weird amount of intuition to it. And then, there are all of these people more and more now coming together without middlemen to kind of work together to create this final product, right? Because like the final product for all of us, not just us at the bakery, but like all of these people in this cycle, is to make like the best loaf of bread you can, right?
Sure.
And so getting to like talk about all of those folks,
that's rad.
Yeah, I think that's really exciting for me. I think having now kind of had like a foot in production baking and a foot in research for over 10 years, 15 years now, it's really seeing the way that grain growing and like production milling and like these things have kind of the system has changed, or can change, I guess, because for a long time in America, and still to this day, there are plant breeders breeding for high protein and yield, and that doesn't lead to good flavor or even healthy crops necessarily. And then, there are grain brokers, like middlemen between the mills and they're just buying for protein, and then there are the folks who, they're the folks who are, and then the millers are just milling for kind of purity. Sure. And they're buying for protein, and none of this takes into account flavor or nutrition, really.
Sure. Yeah. Imagine that.
Yeah. And so to have places like, Cairn Springs does a great job milling white flours, or like lower extraction flours. And I think Camas is like the perfect example of the whole spectrum of what, they have so much control. They've outgrown, I think their farm is 2,700 acres, and they've outgrown that significantly. But, to also be as flexible, because it's not a huge grain, it's a big farm, but like they have enough space to be flexible and like to try stuff.
Sure.
And they have really good relationships with, WSU, OSU, UC Davis, like California Wheat Commission. And so there's always stuff to try. And there's new things to get excited about. And, flavor is gonna kind of always be, flavor and nutrition for them is kind of gonna, is like the North Star.
Yes.
And, we work backwards from there. Like, as bakers, we can make bread out of most things, it's just like, are those two things, and for me, really, flavor is primary. I want everybody to be healthy, but I don't know that that's my job necessarily.
Sure.
As long as it tastes great, Like I'll figure out something to make with it.
Right.
And as long as the farmer can make money on it, and the miller, it's not like a complex beast that adds days to their production or something, you know.
Right.
Then I think these are the you know, I think that's what you get with these smaller mills.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I know, you know, Cairn Springs works a lot with WSU and has really good connections up there. And I think, you know, there's these places popping up all over now. There's multiple smaller mills in California, there's a couple other ones in Washington, you know, Idaho. Barton Creek in Austin is really amazing. They do a lot of really cool stuff. And, you know, then out east, there's a couple of really, really good places. Anyway.
Sure.
This is what I think, you know, and I think it's to what I've been saying, like these all create, like all of these people involved in this, working towards this one thing, that's the community.
Yeah.
And we all have our piece of the information, but, you know, we all get together and talk. Yeah. Like we all have, you know, I can text random people and ask questions. Like
that's cool.
Andrew Ross is a serial chemist at OSU and the smartest baker I've ever met, you know, and like I send him really weird emails and like, you know, he may not respond for like months sometimes, but you know, I'll get an answer eventually. You know, it's like I always pick the wrong time to bug a professor.
3 a.m. I was thinking.
Yeah. No, I think I always get them during like final season or something.
Sure.
But you know, there are all of these people here, and we have events that bring them together. In ways that I think are really, really helpful. One, you know, the PDX Bread Fest started not this year, but not 24, but 23. And I think it's done a really good job to highlight like the micro baking community in Portland.
Nice.
And I think that's really, I mean, A, I think that's really cool that they're able to do that, but B, I think it's really cool that community exists.
Right. It's a part of,
yeah. It's just a bunch of people who are into what they're into, and they do it, and they find a customer base, and that's wonderfthat's really. I mean, I'm a little jealous because that seems a little bit easier to manage, but I think that's fantastic. You know, like Tabor Bread has their community, and you know, Cafeoli kind of has their community, and Ken's has their, you know, and Matt and Zena at Starter Bread, they've really built something cool there. I think they've done a really, really good job, and they make really good stuff, and really care about the whole community, this thing that we've talked about, and you know, I think that's, as far as like grain nerds in Portland, I think that's what's really interesting. We're all working in different styles.
Not just the beer guys. Grain nerds are not just the beer guys.
They are. Yeah. I mean, and not to go off on that tangent, but like, years ago, I was friends with a guy named Josh Gargas, who was something at Commons Brewery.
Yeah.
And he and I and Steve Jones from Steve's Cheese and Cheese Bar would get together and do like tastings where we would just pair beer and bread and cheese. And, you know, like, one, I learned more about fermentation from beer people.
Sure.
And the handful of distillers I know too, like, and then two, you just like, I learned more about tasting, just like actively tasting things from Steve Jones than I have anywhere else in my life.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so like, again, you just,
great opportunities.
Yeah, you just pick these things up, and then actually just 6 months or so ago, Upright, Andy at Upright, or Andrew, started making the Commons farmhouse ale, or just,
really?
He ran a batch of it just once.
Damn.
And so my wife and I were able to like get a growler, and that was really cool. And I was like texting Josh about it. And for an event that I did with Commons, I made a bread based on their farmhouse using their malt bill.
Okay. Yeah.
And the yeast, the farmhouse yeast that they developed.
Yeah.
And
that's so cool.
Yeah, and this was like, I don't know, 15 years ago. And I think about it a lot, and I still love it. And then I was talking to another friend of mine, Andy Garrison from Stone Barn Distilling and Tough Talk. And he was like, oh yeah, I'll put you in touch. Like, you can get some yeast from him. So I emailed him. I was too late, but I'm on the list next time he runs it. So hopefully I can do that again.
I remember the first time I had Commons in the farmhouse specifically, and I was like, what is going on?
Ah.
Sorry, you guys, we're not trying to be too Portlandy here,
No,
but it was a special, some special stuff.
It was a really special brewery.
Yeah.
I think, especially, I mean, because in the 2000s, like most places, there was like this whole, the IPA thing, the whole outburst of IPAs, and a lot of them were not good. A lot of it was like,
that's a fair statement.
But a lot of it was like mismanaged fermentation being covered up with just a lot of hops. But places like Upright and Commons, and then Occidental and Rosenstadt, like zeroed in on like really specific parts of different like cultures, beer traditions, and made really, really incredible things. And luckily, Upright's still around and just doing incredible work. And Occidental is still making really wonderful German style Rosenstadt too, and just really specific, well-made beers. And I think there's still always going to be a lot of IPAs out here just because we grow so much hops. But
this is true.
And like I think in general they've gotten a lot better. I think as brewers grow and learn too, we've all gotten better.
Refining it.
Yeah. Zero in on stuff, and like hop selection is taking a lot of, you can really like dial back the bitterness on stuff.
I've been hearing a lot about Commensal.
Oh, I have not.
I haven't had any, but I keep hearing a lot. Anyway, I'm gonna get there.
Great. I'll have to check it out too.
Yeah. I'll check your schedule. We can go together. We'll go hang out. Matter of fact, the kids from Astral did a pop-up there for Super Bowl Sunday.
Oh, cool.
Which I thought that'd be a great thing if I wasn't too lazy
Yeah.
to get off my couch and go out. I'm like, and I don't really want to watch the game. So, what is, you got some cool stuff coming up in the future? What you're working on? What's the mad scientist, Dr. Frankenstein crazy?
Well, so I have a bunch of breads that I haven't made in a long time.
Okay.
Just because I get bogged down in other things. So and like I think what I need to start doing is just doing pop-ups again.
Sure.
Before I owned the bakery, I would do pop-ups under the name Union Yeast and Grain.
Okay.
And it's still the name of my LLC. And so I miss those things because I could just sort of like, I could do stuff that I couldn't put out here and have it sell, because if I do it at a pop-up, people are like excited and interested. And yeah. And especially if I'm not doing a baguette, like people, kind of get more people come who are excited about weird things. So again, I want to do that. The Commons Farmhouse, that malt loaf is really, really nice. It gets like, the malt gets weirdly peppery when you ferment it as a flour, and then so that's really cool. I miss that. I just want to be able to do more of the stuff that I was working on at Camus for a larger audience than I had there.
Sure.
I really like the really rustic French stuff. Poilon was. I walked past that place regularly when I was going to school there, and I would like get a big loaf and I'd like eat it until I couldn't anymore. And I staged at a place called Boulangerie Mange, which was owned by a man named Dominique Saberon, and it is mostly organic, mostly naturally fermented, mostly whole grain. And that's this was in like 2006 or 2007. And I think that really kind of got me started, because like the loaf of bread he sold the most of was literally just flour, water, and salt. And their starter was just flour and water, and so it's like just 3 ingredients. And it was a high extraction wheat, so it had a lot of like the bran and the germ in it. And it was just so complex for being so simple.
Yeah.
And like I would walk, an hour and a half on my Saturday, like just to go there and like see the city, but like I'd walk there to get this loaf, and like I would eat that all week. And I was, so convinced that it was so complicated. And then I got to stage there and I was like, holy crap, it's literally just these 2 things.
That old saying, the simplest things are the truest, or something like that. It's
and
like,
it's,
here you go. Yeah.
And so getting to do I have a really large miche that's a lot of Rouge de Bordeaux, which is a heirloom red, and then some buckwheat. Just a really long, cool kind of managed fermentation process.
I fell in love with miche. I mean, I've had it before, but for some reason, a couple months ago, I decided that's my go-to right now.
Yeah.
I don't know why I chose that one.
It's,
the weather. I have no idea.
A big, mostly whole grain loaf goes great with soup and stew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah. Exactly.
17 degrees when I went to walk the dog this morning. So I was like, ooh, yeah.
I know. It took me a lot longer to warm my car up this morning than normal. But yeah, just getting, and then just getting to play with, getting into drying more things.
Sure. Because it's, I mean, that's something I hadn't thought about that way, that we'll talk about grains with it. Talking to Mike up at Duality Brewing and Liz last week, and just his brain and how it works on how to just put in this step with something or do this. Not just, I'm going to throw in a toasted fig leaf from the backyard or this or that. But like, what if I did this, or change the temperature on this, or cut this, and just stress this a little bit more, like, well, the grape guys are doing it with the vineyard, the vineyard guys are doing it this. I'm like, let's try this and see what that reaction is going to be. And it's just like, oh man, there's layers to be.
There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that I will only ever be able to make once.
Yeah, sure.
Because like it starts out as like just some weird ingredient that I got. I mean, I started fermenting wild rice with a rye sour, and then started using like a sake kind of technique on it.
Okay.
And so I still make a loaf with it. And we've got it so it's fairly repeatable, but like it, we make a lot of fermented wild rice at a time. Well, not, relatively. And, it changes as the fermentation crashes out in the fridge over 2 months, So it's like, this thing isn't going to be the same. We semi-dried a bunch of strawberries last year because I got a bunch of early kind of underripe ones because we had some weird rain. And, I was making something with like oats and like little oat strawberry rolls, and like, I'm never going to be able to get strawberries like that.
Yeah.
Like that again.
Thank you, Mother Nature.
Yeah. I got this. I got to do it this one time, and that was really cool. And
that's awesome.
And so just getting to do stuff like that, and getting to like have purveyors who are like, hey, I've got all of this weird stuff. Like, last year, Stacy from Side Yard texted me that she just had a lot of ground cherries. Okay. And I was like, of course you do. You always do. And so I ended up just with a lot of ground cherries.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, now we figure out what to do with this.
Yeah.
Or, you start panic buying mushrooms every year.
Oh, sure.
I'll figure out what to do with all these morels.
Yeah. It's so funny. I can't tell you the amount of phone calls and emails I've gotten this year of truffle.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently it's just blowing up this year. Yeah. You talking about education so much, I think it's great, because I was thinking as I was listening to you, I'm like, man, I could sit here and listen to Dillon all day. Like I could geek out on this stuff, and I'm like, and I don't even do it anymore.
And I do tend to wander off.
No, it's okay, brother. It's okay. I mean, because this is, this is what this is about. You know, for me, when Dean came to us and said, "Hey, what do you guys think about going digital? And what do you think about doing a podcast once a week?" Which I don't know. I don't know if we could still. As we're entering into what we call our print cycle, the schedule gets real tough for the next couple of weeks because we're already working on spring. But this was the whole point of it, was like, how do you make those stories jump off the page, and how do we make that stuff come to life and really give people, let them engage and learn. It's like, hopefully we can drive some people, or the people who are your regulars coming in, and like, oh shit, I didn't know that, or oh man, know, and to learn something. I mean, everybody became a baker for 2.5 years. Like, yeah, you did. Okay.
That was,
like,
I mean,
whatever.
Well, that was,
but at the same time, cool.
Well, it was kind of fun for me because I was at Camus when that happened, and we'd scaled back staff, and so I'd never really done a lot of front of the house stuff, but I'd work out the register and like ring people up in this little, like, we have a bakery, we have a little retail store, and all of a sudden, especially when like flour got really hard to find, you got so many people asking questions, and like getting to learn how to talk to different people, or trying to figure out what question they're asking, because they don't, even if they don't know how to phrase it, or the jargon. I think that really helped me a lot. Definitely not get more focused, but like learn how to like talk to more people about flour and baking. And I think, everybody getting into sourdough for like 3 months was rad, because like, 70% of those people don't make bread regularly anymore, but now they know more about it. And there's a bunch of people who ended up opening micro bakeries from that. And then there's other people who still, make bread for themselves weekly. And you get like all of this new energy around it. I thought that was really fun. As much as the pandemic was.
I was gonna say.
Fun.
Unfortunate vehicle.
I mean, I feel like I wasn't the only one looking for the silver lining.
No. I was looking back at some stuff recently, and like, thank God I could do a bottle shop, because for a wine bar, that was not an easy go at all.
No,
at all. But just you talking about that, and sharing some of the stuff to dig in. I mean, and for the folks that are watching this or listening to it, that they're going to have questions, and they're going to ask us, and we're going to give them your email.
Please do.
And we're going to be like, well, here's the man. Here you go. I mean, it's like, and that's what it's about. And to me, we talk about from the house, back of the house, we just talk about customer service for things. And I'm like, that's such a broad statement on what that is. And part of it is being a part of that community, and being like, hey, man, I'm happy to share what I've learned, what I know.
Oh, totally.
Come on down. What are we doing? Like,
absolutely.
Let's do this, and that's so cool. And we need that now more than ever. And it's just time to get it done. What's something fun, cool, different, unusual about you that not everybody knows that you're willing to share? Like, you played bass in a jazz rap yacht rock band. Secretly a pro skateboard.
I feel like I've been doing this for so long, but I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of just a pretty standard dude.
Yeah. We've had everything from I was Chuck E. Cheese to I went to Jack Kerouac school. I'm like, all right.
No, I mean, I don't know. I think I bounced around a lot in education. When I was in high school, I started out doing like stuff for like the learning disorder, and then I went to a boarding school for a year.
Okay.
And went to high school for a minute, and then homeschooled myself poorly, and then got a GED by taking some tests. But no, I mean, I don't know. I'm not. I've just been, food has really been my hobby for so long too.
I feel.
That like my hobbies are like cooking at home, or, all of this is kind of by the wayside because I work 90 hours a week or whatever, but, like gardening, like learning to grow more food, and like picking up stuff that I learned from my parents and like grandparents when I was young. I don't know. I mean, I think that's just kind of, I lived with a baby goat when I was a toddler.
All right.
We had a little farm outside of Madison, Wisconsin, and we had a goat that was born premature, and it lived in the house with us for a while. And so there's pictures of me in my crib and this little goat walking next to me.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What was the goat's name?
I do not remember.
Okay.
We had a couple of pigs too, and my cousin, my folks were like, "Oh, what do you want to name the?" They asked him what he wanted to name the pigs because he was a couple of years older than me, and he gave them the names of his two best friends, and then a couple months later they were slaughtered. And I think about that.
I knew somehow this was working into.
I mean, I think about it a lot. I think it's the innocence of childhood.
Yeah,
but
that's cool.
But no. I mean, just trying to like, I don't do much.
That's cool. Little T Bakery, where are we? When can they come in and see you?
2600 Division, so the corner of Division and 26th Street. We're open 8 to 2 every day. We try to answer the phone when we can, but it doesn't always happen. If you ever need anything special, the email is info@littletbaker.com.
Okay.
And if you give us 36 hours, we can probably have it set aside for you.
Yeah. All right.
So
we can make it. And then the Provedore.
Provedore. They open at 10.
Yeah,
I think they open at 10. We get bread there at 9, so they must open at 10.
Sure.
I think they're open 10 to 7 right now, and 7 days a week too. And if you go there, I highly recommend Revel. Rubinette is amazing produce.
Rubinette.
And 2x C,
absolutely.
It's a really fun place to buy food.
Yes. Yeah. I have a shirt that I was going to have made that I actually went on Christmas Eve, or the day before Christmas Eve last year, with the line that, I'm like, I survived Provedore, 23, 23.
I'll bring that up next time we all have a meeting.
12, 23, 24,
They should make those.
Yeah, I'm like, I did it.
Yeah.
But the hack, because this involves your bread, the hack is you go with 2 people.
Oh.
And you go and you gather your things, and then you hold on your coffee or your pastry or whatever you're gonna have to get through the line. And somebody sits there at the wine bar area or whatever with the stuff.
Gotcha.
And then you work your way through the line. Of course, you're grabbing other stuff.
Sure.
That's, how can you not in there? And then you get up to the sim, and then you meet up and you go to the cash register. So that's the hack to the holiday.
I'll tell people that. I'll let them know.
Like, this is how you do it.
They should do an info post on
this way, exits and this way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Man, thanks for spending time today.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us in.
Yeah.
I know you've got stuff to do, and it's a functioning, happening, rocking business. I mean, whenever I'm driving up, I see the folks in and doing the thing, and it's you guys. You have something incredible going on. You're part of something and carrying on something that's just super rad. And then for you too, just like keeping it rocking and rolling and doing what you clearly are passionate about, bro. You love it.
Yeah, I'm really grateful that we get to do it the way we do it, and I'm really grateful that we also always get to progress and work on stuff and play with new things. And
it's so cool.
Yeah,
it's what it's about.
It is. It's wonderful, and it's great to be a part of a place that allows that to happen.
And it's so clear that energy comes through in all the aspects. Maybe the outsider is telling you, even from afar, even from 2.5 hours away for a long time, I'm like, and when I see things around town or talk about it, and the people who come here, and I know Dean's a regular, and it's just true. I'm like, you just feel it in all the touches and all the stuff. So thank you
Yeah,
For me and the rest of Portland, we would like to thank you.
I appreciate the kind words. I do.
And appreciate you taking time today.
Yeah, of course.
I know you're busy. All righty, guys. That wraps up this week here at Little T, American Bakery. We are, I don't know what we're doing. What are we doing, Dean? When's the next one? I don't know. Next week sometime? I don't even know what's happening. We are getting ready to go to spring, the print cycle, you guys. So winter's still out there. It's moving and shaking. It's almost done. And we've got some fun stuff coming up for you guys. But I thoroughly enjoyed this. I learned a lot today. This was cool. I got to geek out a little bit. I should have, let's make sure we get the notes on this one, Dean, because I'm stoked. Alrighty, guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Smash that like, subscribe, all that stuff. Come down a Little T. Peace and water, y'all. We'll see you out there.
Thank you.
Yeah? Cool, man.
Yeah.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We like to do things a little bit more banter style, not a little less Charlie Will, you know?
Yeah.